When the first settlers from England arrived on American shores in the early 1600s, they came to escape the harsh government back home, to worship as they wished, and to start farms and establish settlements in the New World. America was a far different place back then than it is today. My name is Oliver Mayhew, and I lived in Colonial America during the time of the Revolutionary War. It was one of the most exciting periods in all of American history. In the 1730s, there were 13 English colonies in America. Nearly 700,000 people lived here. About 9 out of 10 colonial families were farmers. My family were farmers. My father plowed and planted the fields and took care of the animals on our farm. My mother often tended to the garden. We grew enough food for our own needs, with some left over to sell or trade for the things we could not raise ourselves, like salt, sugar, coffee, fruit, and gunpowder. My sisters helped Mother prepare meals and make clothing. In many of the colonies, boys went to school for only a few weeks a year. Girls were taught at home. Most farms were small and were clustered near a village. The work was hard. By the time I was 9, I worked in the fields with my father. He was a skilled carpenter, and he built our home with the help of some neighbors. It had a large main room on the ground floor called the common room, where we spent most of our time. Mother and Father's bedroom was on the first floor. I shared a room with my brother and sisters on the second floor. We had no electricity, so all our heat was provided by a large stone fireplace. Mom cooked our meals there too. At night, we used candles and lanterns for light. When I was 10, I was taught how to load and fire a musket, so I could help hunt wild turkeys. We never used rifles for fun or sport. Everything we hunted, we used.
I full cock it with the set triggers, fire.
Dad taught me how to handle an axe to chop wood for the fireplace and how to carve tools. We had to make many things ourselves. There were no stores nearby. We all worked hard and shared pride in doing a job well. By 1775, there were serious disagreements between the 13 colonies and the British government in England. Many colonists wanted to break away from the English king and form their own country. Soon, there was war. My father became a member of the Continental Army. He fought with other colonists against English soldiers. The standard uniform of a Continental soldier was supplied by the French. It included a cartridge box worn over a coat, knee breeches, stockings, half gaiters to protect the lower leg, and boots or shoes. Their uniforms were made of wool with pewter buttons. The double-breasted coats folded over and buttoned tightly for warmth. The Continental Army was made up of citizen soldiers, like my father. Many of them didn't have money to buy uniforms and sometimes fought in their own clothes. Other troops wore various uniforms which included a hunting frock, haversack, powder horn, and other necessities. Life in the Continental Army was crude. Soldiers had to move quickly, so their camps had to be easy to transport. Tents were made of canvas, supported by wooden poles. They could be put up in minutes and carried easily in a wagon. A soldier's equipment was carried in wooden chests that contained everything from canteens to cartridge boxes, a bayonet and scabbard, and a soldier's personal items. Light infantry troops put fur on top of their hats to protect their heads from sharp saber blows. Soldiers used straw as bedding, insulation, and to block drafts from under their tents. Animal skins were used as blankets. As at home on the farm, just about everything was handmade, including the lanterns. Lantern poles and other camp equipment was made of iron. Duties were divided among the soldiers. Camp was always set up near a source of fresh water, which was carried to camp in buckets made of wood or canvas. When in camp, it was usually the sergeant or corporal's wife who prepared the meals. Soldiers ate what they could find nearby. A favorite meal was biscuits baked in a cast iron Dutch oven. Eggs and sausage were always a treat when they could be found. Apple cider was always welcome. During the Revolutionary War, the Continental Army used many different kinds of weapons. Because the Army had very little money, many soldiers simply fought with whatever weapons they owned. Soldiers would often drill, and, when there was enough gunpowder, they would practice their marksmanship. The Revolutionary War went on until the Continental Army defeated the British at Yorktown. On September 3, 1783, the Treaty of Paris was signed, and the war was officially over. Our new nation was on its own. After the Revolutionary War, we were no longer colonists. We were Americans. My Uncle Gerald was a land agent. After the war, it was his job to give free land to men who had fought in the Continental Army. He traveled throughout the South, settling ledgers and granting deeds. He traveled by foot and had to carry his personal belongings with him. His two most important possessions were his bedroll and his haversack. He always carried a small notebook to record his business transactions. Your haversack always included a fire starting kit. There were no matches in those days, so the only way to start a fire was with flint and steel. Once you got the hang of it, it was really very easy. Travelers always carried char cloth or char wood. The sparks from the flint stick to the char and start to glow. It soon turns into a red-hot ember and then into a fire. Every traveler carried a corn broiler in the haversack as well. We carried and cooked our food in the corn broiler. Parched corn was a staple. Everyone used salt, and the perfect place to carry that was in a hollowed-out gourd. Travelers usually carried several, each for a different spice. Hot tea, coffee, and cider were all popular drinks in those days. Your haversack always included a metal cup along with a piece of leather, so you wouldn't get burned while drinking something really hot. You also carried your own eating utensil in the haversack. It was usually made out of a cow horn, which had been split open, carved into the shape of a spoon, boiled in water, and then put into a mold to give it its shape. Once the Americans gained their independence, many men who had fought in the army went west to map and discover the land they had fought so hard for. From these simple beginnings, they would go on to build this country into what it is today. Life was far different then, but it was the Revolutionary War years that were one of the most important and exciting times in our history.